I mean, the system is very user friendly. So the kiosk specifically, I mean, we had a check-in kiosk that we used prior to this one, which we were, we thought kind of worked quite well. And really, we've kind of noticed it since the new one's gone in, which we kind of put in for additional functionality. Whereas I would say previously that, we would get a good kind of like 20% of guests who, despite looking at the old kiosk and there'd been a speakerphone next to it, they'd press the speakerphone because they weren't really sure kind of what to do. Whereas with the new one, I mean, I haven't had a single call out since it's been installed of someone turning up without instruction and not knowing what to do. So, for me, that's the key indication of the usability. Can someone kind of turn up without instruction and figure out what to do to check into the hotel? Yeah, so I mean, in regards to training, so when the system was installed, obviously we had the Futuresens team that were staying at our hotel that night, and they were kind of when they did the installation. So we kind of had ongoing training throughout that day. So we made sure that all our kind of management, all our supervisors were on site that day. They all got a run through of how the system works, how to top it up with key cards, how it interfaces with the PMS system, how a guest kind of checks in. We also had a video call at the same time where they were able to put the check-in kiosk on the screen and just run through with us kind of what the process looks like for the guests, as a start to finish check-in. Once we then went live, we had a WhatsApp group with kind of our supervisor team and the Futuresens guys. So whenever there was any problems with a check-in, like we had some guests that might put their name in and it wasn't found, then we could put that video on the WhatsApp, and then there'd be an investigation as to kind of what had happened in that scenario, and then it was resolved. So through a variety of things, in person, kind of scheduled training, and kind of training as we go along and issues or questions come up. So the kiosk helps reduce the pressure on staff, primarily by, it is able to kind of, you tend to find when kind of people arrive that there might be two types of guests. There's a guest that wants to kind of come in, get their key, go to their room. A business guest will typically not want to kind of hover around reception. They won't have a huge amount of questions about what are the good restaurants to go to, what are the attractions in town. So, on the times where we have both the reception desk open and the kiosk available to check in, if you were to have two guests turn up simultaneously, they could go to the kiosk one after another and whiz through. Whereas if you have kind of guests that have questions and want a bit more face time with the staff, then that's great. Then, our reception's there. They can go and chat to that member of staff while, everybody else who just wants to check in and go to their room while the kiosks there, and they can go use it. And then within a couple of minutes from arriving, they can be in their apartment. Yeah, so I would say that the system at the moment has not had any issues with regards to peak time or off-peak time. So we had a previous kiosk that you would, the guests would come, they would check in, and there was, gaps of, 10 or so seconds between each step. And then once one guest had checked in, you might have to wait a minute or two before the next one comes. Whereas with the Futuresens kiosk, a guest will turn up, they use it, it's instantaneous in terms of its ability to find a booking and to check in, and then click of a finger and it's ready for the next booking. So we've not seen any issues with regards to delays with it kind of going from one guest to the next. So we've not had any issues with peak times and its ability to deal with that. In terms of return on investment, so we first had a check-in kiosk installed, I guess, almost 9 years ago now. So, for us, we saw the return on that investment, within 12 months. We before we had a check-in kiosk, when we had a manned reception from 9 till 5. And then we would, for outside of those hours, we would have to kind of contact the guests to ask them for arrival times. And if they were going to kind of arrive at 9 o'clock at night, then we'd be paying for a member of staff to stay around till 9 o'clock at night. Or we'd have to also kind of pay, for on-call members of staff, the requirements of what they had to do within their job was significantly more than now. So now, someone that's on call might have to answer a couple of phone calls, or more often than not really do anything at all. Whereas previously, an on-call member of staff would be expected to be going out once or twice in an evening to check people in. So for us, the additional staffing costs of once we got a check-in kiosk, that was immediate. I would say that we paid back the cost of the kiosk within 12 months. So we had this kind of already, and we know how quickly the payoff was. Now we were coming to the end of the life cycle for our old kiosk, so actually having a check-in kiosk was a license to operate for us. We could never consider going back to any other model. So as our old kiosk was coming to the end of its life, we knew we had to invest in another one. And we could have bought this. Other providers were offering exactly the same system we already had, and for the same amount of money that we've got this new kind of system that just does so much more. So from going from nothing, I would say that the return on investment, depending on how you structure your business, could easily be 1 year. Yeah, so I mean, having new staff and using the kiosk, the reality is, once the kiosk is up and running, there is next to nothing that staff actually have to do with it. So, once it's up and running, you have to load it with new key cards, maybe kind of once a week, depending on how busy you are. But there's virtually nothing else that needs to be done. So, in terms of any additional bits and pieces, we as a management team, we can decide if there's a new bit of functionality, a new step that we want to kind of put into the check-in process, and then we can ask Futuresens to add that in. But on a day-to-day basis, there is nothing they need to do. If they're a local hotel, I would say don't do it. More for the fact I want to be the only one that's using it. But no, I mean, seriously, I would say that if anyone's thinking of using a kind of a self-check-in kiosk, then, and the Futuresens one is the one that we're using, then absolutely, you'd be foolish not to. It's it's extremely simple for the customer. It's it it's linking seamlessly to our PMS system. I just don't know why you wouldn't. It's doing all the administrative stuff that would take time that guests don't like. No one likes turning it to a hotel, standing in line, watching someone on reception tapping away for 15 minutes, and you're wondering what's going on. Well, this is turning that into a process of the guest turns up, puts their names in, gets the key cards, and goes to the room. What's better than that?